Hello and welcome to an extremely special episode of Michael and Mom Talk Cancer. I'm your official host, Michael Kramer, and
I am the other official host, Ashley Kramer, aka Mom. And okay, this one is special, but it's really special. I mean, they're all special, we always say that. But I have known Stayc, we were just figuring it out since 2003, 2004.
That's crazy. It's been a really long time.
Yes, that is not even what brought us together today. Today what brought us together is cancer.
Right.
We met in 2003. Okay, so we were talking about this before, that I've known you a million years and I didn't even know your last name because you are Miss Stayc.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, we're so happy to have you. And this is Michael and Mom Talk Cancer, so that's like why we're on today. But we know each other because of early childhood education.
Absolutely. And that, you know, and honestly, to be honest, like the reason that I followed Michael's journey was because of the early childhood education side of it, because I followed you, and then I was like, I started sending Michael messages because as a cancer survivor myself, I legit know what the struggles are, and going through it and seeing that journey, and it was all happening in the middle of the pandemic. So like every part of me wanted to reach out and like hug you guys like every single day because what you are going through, because like I know that this is not there's nothing fun about this. I mean,
well, this part is fun. The podcast is kind of fun, right?
yeah,
fun.
there are
This
good,
part is
there are
fun.
good things to it, for sure.
And that's the thing too, is like I think that for anybody that watches, like you always talk about the cha-cha. I'm like, it's the cha-cha slide. Like there's you'll cha-cha and then you'll slide. And so like the finding the humor in this is important, and finding the laughing and finding the spirit and being able to be like, you know, this is real, like, but we have to find a way to be able to get through it and, you know, find that happy oxytocin when you're going, wait, my whole life is blowing up. What's going on?
Yes, the healthy oxytocin. It's so funny because I do think that is so important. Like finding the good energy, even in the midst of it.
I just want to ask your story. Like, what brings you here? What type of cancer did you have?
The cancer. I mean, we know you have a million. Everyone has a million stories,
right?
But tell us what your cancer story is.
Yeah, like how you found out you were diagnosed and like everything.
And how long ago? Because I'm not even sure what year you were diagnosed.
1986. So
okay,
it's been a day or 12. So not the irony. The thing that was really strange about being diagnosed. It is a day that I will never forget. It is a day the world will never forget, because I was diagnosed on September 11th, 1996.
Oh, wow.
No.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
And the way they found it was I got into a fender bender and went to the Yearr. So I went to doctors before, and the Yearr doctor came back.
I ask, not to like know your age now, but how old were you then?
I was 30, so I'm 58.
Okay.
So
yeah, we're about the same
28
age.
years, yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, the doctor did a head and chest and neck X-ray just to kind of rule out anything. And she literally walked back in and she said, in all of my years of doing ER medicine, I know that you are going to be the only patient that I ever do this with, but we are going to tell you here in the ER that you have cancer.
Oh my God.
And were you feeling any symptoms before this car accident?
Nope.
Nothing.
I was totally
insane.
asymptomatic. I have asthma, so maybe that could have been why I was having shortness of breath. But I was stage B, so I mean that's a whole nother story. So not having any symptoms, the doctor was like, she put up the chest and neck X-ray, and the one tumor literally was the size of my hand and went across to my heart. So it was black all the way across my heart.
Wow.
And then the other went from the tip of my left shoulder, wrapped around my neck, and literally had moved my trachea over.
And you
Oh
had
my gosh.
were you doing early childhood at this time?
Yep, yep,
So you were doing all of this high energy.
yep. And I was teaching at that point. I'm gonna turn on my fan for a second. I hopefully it doesn't pick up too much ambient noise. I was had just bought my first business.
Okay.
So I bought the business in March, and it was a gymnastics company, a big gymnastics company here in Miami, and turned 30 in June, and then this happened in September. So I was working 80-hour weeks, easy.
Easy.
And the doctors were like, well, you're going to have to quit your job. And I said, no, I'm not quitting my job. Like, there's no way I can quit my job. And, like, there's no way. Like, this is my happy place. And they said, well, we'll write you a letter so that you can get on disability, but there's no way you're going to be around kids. And I was like, nope, I'm going to keep teaching. And they said, well, do you understand what we're telling you, that you are going to possibly die in 8 weeks? And
I just literally, even though this is all these years ago and I know you're okay,
Wow.
I literally just welled up and my chills and want to cry.
Oh my god.
and I was like, yeah, I understand what you're saying to me. They gave me choices between a newly found chemotherapy, concoction, because it's never just one, it's always, Kool-Aid. So
Yes.
so and then they're like, well, you have Hodgkin's lymphoma. So that, of course, to me, like ties into your story as well, because I know with your story. But being Hodgkin's, like every doctor that walked in, because I saw 10 specialists before I actually met the oncologist being in the hospital. And every doctor came in and said, great news, it's Hodgkin's disease. Congratulations, you're fine. And walked out the door with, your heart is fine. Your lungs are fine. Your this is fine. Your this is fine. Finally, the oncologist walks in. I'm like, listen. He goes, hi, I'm the hematologist, oncologist. He's like, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, listen, I just need to talk to the cancer dude, please.
Yeah.
And he's like, you have Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I'm like, what does that mean? And he's like, it's a blood cancer. And, it's pretty far along. And he's like, we did all the surgery, because they couldn't put me to sleep for the biopsies. I was awake for the biopsies because of how infiltrated my trachea was.
Okay.
And he's like, I'll see you in 6 weeks. And I went, what? Like, because back then you didn't get results right away. It took a while.
Wow. 6 weeks. That's long.
So wait,
That's long when people are saying you might have 8 weeks to live.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. That's...
Well, they
that
didn't
was
tell me
after.
at that point. Like,
Okay,
they
okay,
told
that
me,
was after.
we'll send you home. We'll see you, we'll see you in 6 weeks.
So they did biopsies, but they didn't do any surgery to remove anything. It was
They
just.
could
it
not.
was.
It was too. It
Okay.
was wrapped around my heart.
Okay.
Even my heart is like kind of like right now. I'm like feeling like, oh my gosh. I mean, I talk about this a lot. It's not the first time that I've done this. I've done national TV. Like I've done international TV. Like, this is not just a thing. And back then there wasn't opportunities to be able to really talk about it. There wasn't a way for you to tell your story, because the internet was still new. There wasn't any information. I couldn't go and just look up what they said to me. They were all a bunch of jumbles of words. And so I was like, okay, whatever. And then when I sat down, I went back to the doctor's appointment. He's like, okay. He's like, it's stage 4. He said it's stage 4B. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean?
Does B mean beautiful? B means bad? What
B
does B
is
mean?
like what are you talking about?
Almost an
Like,
A plus. What does
I'm
it
like,
mean?
a B's good? Like, okay. Like,
It's above average. I don't know. In school, a B's
I'm
not
like,
that bad.
I was an A in school. Like, what is, like, exactly?
Oh
You
my.
know, whereas my friends immediately, like, I didn't have a support system. So my family, I come from a family that was very non-supportive. So I love this information and the way you have this relationship with Michael, because my mom's sitting across from me in the hospital. The doctor walked out and she goes, I can't believe you could do this to me. What were you thinking?
Oh my god.
You are joking.
No,
Wow.
I'm serious. My dad and I
You
have
were
not.
30. Were you living at home or no?
No, I moved out at 18 because it
Right.
was a very bad situation. And I hadn't spoken to my dad in probably at least 5 years, maybe more. We were totally estranged because there was a lot of stuff. So, like, even my dad showed up and he went, oh, okay, well, good luck, man. I just wanted to make sure I saw you before you died. And I was like,
Oh my God, Stacey.
legit.
I'm so
So,
sorry.
no, but my friends stepped in. My friends became my cha-cha partners. We called my barf patrol the barf patrol. So the entire time we watched the NHL the entire time, like, watching it, because Mario Lemieux, who is a famous hockey player, in the middle of me going through my diagnosis and going through all of this, sent me tickets so that I could go to every game if I was feeling up to it.
How did that happen? That
That's
was
so
before the
cool.
internet. Like, I can understand with like Instagram or whatever. How did that happen?
My brother contacted his people and said, hey, listen, my sister has the same disease that Mario has. Like, it's really not good. She's super into hockey. Can you do this for me? And he was on the Penguins. He wasn't even on the Panthers. So it wasn't like, it was like very, very cool. But my friends literally would come over, and all weekend long that I would be sick, because I would do chemo on a Friday, be sick Friday, Saturday, Sunday, get up Monday morning, go back to work. But I would teach Monday until Friday, like at 2 o'clock, and then be off on the weekend.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And you're teaching gymnastics, which is like not sitting at a desk, low energy.
Right. Teaching gymnastics to mostly 3-year-olds. So,
Yeah.
like,
And how did you do that? Like, how did you get the energy?
Your
Like,
mindset, girl. Talk about mindset. There's no way that wasn't your.
Did the kids or parents know what was happening?
yeah. So that was one of the things. So right away, immediately, they really thought I was in denial, because I kept saying, listen, I'm going to do this because this makes me happy. Like, this is where this is my happy place.
Yeah.
And I can't not have my happy place. So, they gave me a psychiatrist, and they're like, no, we need to have you evaluated. I'm like, I'm not in denial. I understand what you've said to me. I think the one blessing is I have autism. We didn't know it then, but I think the autism really helped me not have to deal with a lot of the auxiliary emotions, because I was just like, no, they have told me this is what we can do. They gave me a choice of doing the new chemotherapy or going to the old one. And I went, nope, let's make history. Like, I want to change. If this is something that can change people's lives and I've only got 8 weeks, let's do that. And then
Amazing.
Wow.
it was crazy. It was, but I knew I wanted that. Like, I knew that it was a moment that changed my life. It was a moment that I was like, this could be really, really great. And I want to take that chance. So,
It's the purpose factor.
yeah.
I mean,
It's the purpose
Yeah.
factor.
you were doing what you loved, and if
Right. And then,
possibly, possibly
No,
the
but
last few
not
months
not
of
just
life,
that. You were
know?
doing what you loved, but also your by going with the newer treatment, which sometimes people are so scared. I mean, of going with that, and I think by doing that, it was also your purpose. You're like, what the heck?
right.
I mean,
Right.
so brave and so beautiful and so risky and so giving and just who you are.
It was at that moment I didn't understand the magnitude of it. Now I do. Like
Right.
I understand it. And I remember sitting with a psychologist and being like, how do I tell my 3-year-olds that my hair is going to fall out and then I'm going to be vomiting and then I'm going to have these issues? And they're like, we don't know. We don't even know why you are thinking about doing this. And I said, okay, I'll figure it out. So I sent an email to all of our parents. And I mean, at that point, I had 700 students.
Right.
And so we sent an email to everybody and said, hey, listen, Miss Stacey has cancer. She's going to be losing her hair. She's going to be going through these things. We need you just to understand what that is. Only one person on the planet knew that I was terminal, besides my doctor. And he was my boyfriend at the time and was really, literally, when he found out cancer in the ER, he left. I was like,
Oh
so
my
my
God.
barf patrol, the people that were my people, just knew I had cancer. I didn't tell my business partner how bad it was. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't tell my family how bad it was. I just went into this mental pod that no matter what I did, this was going to be fine. And I was going to survive.
Right.
So every single chemo, I mean, my hair started to fall out, and the kids, to make the kids feel better, I was like, oh, Miss Stacy's taking this really yucky black medicine, because I didn't want him to be afraid of taking penicillin or
Of
something.
course.
Like I had to put it in a way that a child would be like, oh, okay, well, because I don't want to take medicine, my hair's going to fall out. And many times I would be like, Miss Stacy will be right back, and I'd run to the bathroom, I'd be sick, and then I would come right back and jump right back into class. Um, and I questioned that a lot. I chose not to do the wig, which back then it really made a lot of people angry. Like, I was at Dayland at the mall, and somebody walked up to me and said, how could you do this? Why are you walking around? And I went, why am I walking around like this? Like, because there was a lot less talk about cancer. There still wasn't, you know, there wasn't, it was very isolating.
And it was at that time. It was still.
Still like
I remember,
stigmatized, maybe.
yeah, and it
Yeah.
was
It
still
was
like
very much.
the C word. I remember we interviewed someone recently that was like, his mom had breast cancer, and he's like, we didn't even say cancer, we said the C word.
We didn't even say
And
the C word. And in fact, I still in my vernacular say the C word. Like still today, I still kind of go, it's hard to say it because of the negativity that surrounded the stigma. It was a stigma. People like my ex-husband, had thyroid cancer. So like I had called him and I was like, listen, dude, I just need you to know before you find out from our friends, because we all had still the same friends, that I have lymphoma and like it's really bad. And he went, well, it's not like you caught it from me or anything. And I went, yeah, there's a reason you're my ex. Great. Okay.
What a response.
oh my gosh, girl! Thank
Like,
God
you
for
weren't
your
blaming
friends.
him.
Like, thank
My
God for your
friends were
friends.
amazing.
Yeah,
So like my
that's
friends,
great.
the first joke was 4 out of 5 doctors prefer Hodgkin's over the leading cancer.
Yeah, the
Because it
good
was
cancer,
like,
even though there is no good cancer, but whatever. Yeah,
right, yeah, I was like, okay, like, but like the fact that they started to come up with all of these like silly, like they called themselves the Barf Patrol. They carried my bucket around. I still call that core group of people my Barf Patrol. Um, one of the people that is one of those core people, actually, you guys probably know from Children's, because he's actually the head of technical support at Children's. So, and honestly, at one point I said to Scott, I'm like, I know it's the middle of the pandemic. Can you sneak me into the hospital? Because I actually had a Children's badge until the pandemic where I could come and go when I pleased to be able to be in the hospital around the kids being Miss Stacy. So like, and honestly, that was that whole relationship, that whole time was just, how can I be around these people that are not going to see me as, and hear that phrase, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I know, Michael, how many times and Ashley too, how many times do you hear that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
It kind of gets annoying after a while.
It's hard. You try to be like, okay, someone that hasn't been through it, they can't understand.
And you try to be empathetic, and you want to be supportive of them, and want to be supportive of them supporting you, but it gets,
it's
hard. I mean, literally, I just came out of 5 months of therapy of talking about this.
Wow. See, but look at that. So this is like 20 years later.
Almost 30.
Yeah, I was just going to, actually 28, right? 28
Yeah.
years later, and you're doing therapy. It does change you forever and ever. But okay, so do you want to so you did the experimental treatment. Obviously, you're still here.
And how was it? How was the treatment?
Well,
So we did, after 5 months of chemotherapy, which was the first leg, the tumors were gone. So it was miraculous. I mean, and I took a holistic and a holistic approach to it too. So like every time I had cancer, I just imagined the chemo going to my body and being Pac-Man and eating the cancer. So like, I believe that there was this visualization process that really helped the chemotherapy work with my body. But I should have gone through 6 months, and at 5 months, I said, no, I'm done. Like, I can't do this anymore. I've had enough. My white blood cell count was so low that, like, it was just not okay. And so we took a month off. So it was New Year's Eve, 1996. That was my last chemotherapy. And I'm like, I'm going in the new year, and then we'll figure it out. And so then we did 3 months of full mantle radiation. So basically from the tip of my chest to the tip of my chin, front and back, from shoulder to shoulder, full radiation every single day.
every day for 3 months. Wow.
Where was the radiation done?
We did it at Baptist. So it was...
Me too.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, I was at Baptist as well for radiation.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what it was back then, but the team there was really great when I was there.
Well, and it was like this, it was before they had the cancer center. So my oncologist was based there, and he's one of the original oncologists from the original team that became the cancer center. He's no longer an oncologist anymore. So, but like, and so there was this little teeny tiny office that did just radiation off of 87th Avenue. I mean, it's weird that we live in the same city, so we can like talk about the same. Like, there's a part of my brain that I almost called you and went, "Can we just do this in person?"
I know.
I know, right? Like, I didn't think about that.
I did think about it, and I was like, well, it'll be easier this way, but I know.
Yeah, I mean,
But we'll still meet for the hug after.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't worry.
But yeah, like, so and every single day, so every day at 3:00, I went and I taught. So I actually was at 2:00. So every day I taught from 9 to 12. I would go home. I would sleep for like an hour and a half. I still sleep for an hour and a half. In the middle of the day, I nap to this day.
I still need it, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
And then I would go do radiation, and then go back to the gym and be at the gym and from 3 until 8. So,
oh my God. And radiation is so hard.
Radiation was the beast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was way worse than anything I felt in chemotherapy. The vomiting was way worse. I had second degree burns on the inside of my esophagus. I had second degree burns on my skin. Like I look like my friends like, look, it's the cheapest tan and wax job ever.
Oh my God.
Or most expensive tan and wax
Yeah,
job.
I was gonna say it's the most expensive. It's so
Yeah.
expensive.
Because back then, so my full year of treatments, which is pretty much, it took about a year for everything to finish, was over $1 million.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course.
We have some experience with that. So
I know.
we
And there
understand
wasn't a GoFundMe then. There wasn't
Yeah.
the blessing in all of this is my insurance kicked in 10 days before I was diagnosed. The insurance tried to block it, saying it was pre-existing, and I was like, nope, did not know about this. Like there's like no way. And I fought for it. Like I fought, that was part of the fight too. And
Sadly, it still is.
still is my fight. I was gonna say it literally is. I'm still going through that fight. So, and then, I'm not cured, because with lymphoma you wait 7 years before you go into true remission. So we fast forward a little bit. I'm pretty much just being in my pod and just dealing with those feelings and those emotions. And my thyroid got really messed up, so I gained 100 pounds because of the radiation.
Oh my gosh.
And my primary kept telling me, well, just stop eating, like, or work out more. And I'm like, no, this is not right. I work out a lot.
Yeah.
So finally I changed primaries, and she's like, yeah, your thyroid's gone. And I went, oh, okay. Well, that would be the reason. And so once I got on meds, I started to lose weight, and, started to finally dig my heels in a little bit on the fact that this wasn't over.
Yeah. We talk about that.
I mean, I know for you, for both of you, you're still in that fleshy part of it. It's still that uncomfortable part of the bubble where you go, is it okay? Is it not okay?
And you just always wait for the other shoe to drop. And you try not to. That's what, we talk about that a lot. We talk about that, Michael and I talk about that with other caregivers, is that even when you have okay, you're all clear, we have so many stories of people that they're all clear and it comes back. Or you just have that PTSD. Or and it's not just that, it's still the remaining health issues, like everything he's still going through anyway. And like you, just like your thyroid, you still have it's not like you go in remission and, we say you're not all good. It's not just because you're in remission that you're all good. And that's, I think, a lot of people, unless you've been through cancer, I think that is a piece. Like more and more people are empathetic and sympathetic and kind. But until you've been through it, I think that piece in particular, people can see you vomiting and be like, oh my God, that sucks. But the after is really hard.
I think Komen played a big part in that. And people being more acceptance, being able to talk about it, being able to see people. I did my first relay almost a year after, almost exactly a year after my diagnosis. And one of my other friends was diagnosed with skin cancer. And I was like, you're doing this with me. And she's like, I don't have real cancer. I'm like, you have cancer. Once you have that word, it is in your body. You're coming and doing this with me. And, she and her family were super supportive of me the whole time. Like, I remember Thanksgiving was at their house, and I don't know how I say this, but my doctor had told me I was having really bad problems with nausea and vomiting. And my oncologist was like, hey, if you can get a hold of some pot,
You can talk about that. We talk about medical cannabis now all the time, of course.
But
At the
now,
time, there
yes,
wasn't. No, I know. And at the time, there wasn't.
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
And the 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 thing that was hard for me was that the husband was a a police officer. So like I called them and like, you're not going to believe, the doctors told me that I need pot to help with my nausea, and he's like, I got you.
Oh, that's so funny.
Oh my God, coolest guy ever, best family.
So Thanksgiving Day was
That is an amazing story.
That's funny.
so I got to eat, and then it
That's
passed
good.
out for 5 hours.
That is
so
a
funny.
great story.
That is a good
Okay,
story.
I love that.
So yeah, and then my what it would be my 5-year survivor date was September 11th, 2001, and that was my oh crap moment.
Oh my God. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. That was a pretty crap moment. But we don't look at that as bad symbolism. We look at it as, I don't know.
There it was two-sided for me. So there was the number one, I felt super guilty. I had survivor's guilt. Like there was no tomorrow,
I feel
because I was like, why did I get chosen to be okay and these people are not?
of course.
And it was thousands of people, so it wasn't like, and I know you guys understand this as well, like being in the hospital, unfortunately you see the people pass away and you have to deal with all of that, and there's no way that you can get rid of that feeling of why me, and not the why me, like why did this happen to me, but now it's the why me, am I chosen to be here,
Yes.
Right.
which gets me
Yes.
very emotional.
Yes.
It does.
Of course it does.
Well, and I
We've seen so many people pass, and so yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
and it hurts, and it's like, so that was the moment where I was like, nope, I am not a survivor. I hate that word. I'm a thriver.
There you go.
And I sold the business for $10 and a laptop. It was a multi-million-dollar business.
Oh my
Picked up my life, and 6 weeks later, I was living in Texas, working for an Olympic level gym with an Olympian, with like the whole Bella Caroli, like whole group around me, going, how did this happen?
Oh my gosh. He doesn't know who Bella Crowley
No,
is,
I
but
don't.
like one of the like top gymnastic coaches ever, like Mary Lou Retton. You don't know who that is.
He
but
trained
this,
Mary Lou Retton. Like
yeah,
so
she's like
I'm
one of the
I'm
top gymnasts.
Awesome.
and it was an awkward conversation because I called Kim Zamaskal. She was opening a
Yeah.
gym. And I called Kim and I'm like, Bella had been to openings of my gyms here. I had 6 of them.
Oh my
So
god.
I called Kim, like, hey, Kim, I need a job. And she goes, what? Why? And I went, it's a long story. I just need to change. And she's like, can you be here in 6 weeks? And I said, sure, no problem.
Ah. See, that's what cancer will do for you. That is a gift that it will give you.
Well, and I cancer made my life better.
Yeah.
It made me really understand, appreciate. Yes, I had had huge amounts of mental, physical, emotional trauma before my cancer, but cancer allowed me to step into this magic that I was alive and I could make these choices about my life. That when the cancer stuff is spinning around you, you've got no control over that stuff. Like it is its own thing. It's its own beast. But the choice is to step out of the comfort zone and step into the magic of what if in a positive way was amazing. It was empowering. It changed my life. Like it changed my life. And I'm working in this new space. I'm in a new city. I don't know anybody. I come across a brochure for team and training, and I'm like, that's it. I'm gonna ride a 100-mile bike ride.
Oh my god.
I called my oncologist. And my oncologist is
Wow.
like, you're out of your mind. Like, you are not gonna do this.
But
And
it
I
sounds
said,
fun.
But I think that sounds fun too.
That sounds
You
awesome.
could do it.
Maybe one day.
maybe, but so my oncologist put a hard no on it, and I'm like, well, can I do a half marathon? And he's like, no, you are not. I do not recommend it. And I went, okay. So I talked to the people at LLS, and I said, what can I do? And they said, well, you can be an honored survivor.
Yeah.
So you can train with the team, be part of the team. And I remember being at the very first recruitment meeting, standing up and saying, hi, my name is Stacy Simpson. And on September 11th, 1996, I was diagnosed with stage 4 terminal lymphoma. And that was the first time I had ever said those words. And I said it to a group of strangers.
Aw.
Wow.
But I'm sure they understood you. You're at an LLS event.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, but even so, like, and one of the people that was getting ready to sign up, like, literally walked up to me because I was here. I had like 3-year-olds next to me, standing next to me, and I'm like, how can that not motivate you to raise money to save people's lives? Seeing these little kids and seeing what they're going through and not be moved by that. And so I felt kind of like an idiot a little bit because, I'm 35 going, yep, I'm here hanging out with the kids.
Oh.
And one of the people said, I'm signing up because of you. And I said, why? And he said, because your story is the words that those children cannot say. And it has way more weight than hearing the parent's story for me. He ended up becoming one of the coaches later on. He's still with the program, still does it. And I mean, we raised millions of dollars. Like, our team in North Texas is the team that funded Gleevec.
Wow. Wow.
So, I mean, that has weight. And then the very first event that I did for Relay for Life, I assistant chaired the first Relay for Life in the city I lived in Dallas. I was in Dallas, but it was a smaller city. We raised $500,000, and I went,
Wow.
okay, there's some advantages to having football players and basketball players and baseball players that come to my gymnastics program. Got it. Okay.
That always helps.
Oh my gosh. So your life is just so full of purpose. It's
Right.
insane. You've just taken this and you just.
But how are you now? Like, what?
Well, how are you now?
Yeah,
and
but
how did you end up back in Miami?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Okay, so I ended up not the Olympic gym was not my gig, and I started Gymagination, which is my current business,
Yes.
at a rec center, like teaching like 3 days a week. I was working like 3 hours a day. Like, it was awesome, and that was in 2003. And then came back to Miami because one of my good friends was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And I'd come home for the holidays, and she's like, listen, I need you home. Can you please come home? And I was like, yep, I can do that. I packed up everything, got back in the same,
Yeah.
and came home. And she passed away. So I was back in Miami by February of 2010. And then she passed away the beginning of June in 2010. But I was holding her hand when she took her last breath. I was with her for that moment. So that brought me here. The one thing that happened 2 years before that in Texas was they found a lump in my breast. So I had stage 1 breast cancer. That was a side effect from my first cancer. which they told me going forward I would have a 30 to 35% chance of having another cancer. So I kind of was like, okay. But we, did a lumpectomy. It was no big deal. There's no chemo, there's no radiation. It was fine. Um, once I was back here, my friend from Children's saw me changing and he said, "You've got a spot on your back." And I'm like, "What do you mean there's a spot on my back?" He's like, "We need to get biopsied." I'm like, "I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not doing this." He literally took me to dermatology Children's and was diagnosed in Children's
Oh
Oh
my
my God.
gosh.
with basal cell skin cancer.
Oh my gosh.
And that was in 2010. So,
Okay.
at the same time that happened and all this stuff is happening with my friend, I'm having problems breathing. At that point, I was walking for 4 miles a day. Like I really was, I'd been doing team and training. So I literally had trained for the Disney Marathon 5 times. I was like, dude, I am doing this. There's no way I am not. Things had happened health wise, but I was doing like 11 miles on a Saturday. So I was like, I am doing this. And God went, no, you're not. I went, oh, okay. And I started coughing up blood at night. And I went to ER. They said it was pneumonia, steroids. It happened like 3 times. It kept happening. Finally, a doctor said, "Has anybody checked your heart?" And I said, "Well, no, like my heart is clear, like the lymphoma." He goes, "No, no. Has anybody checked your heart?" Because it turns out that the chemotherapy that they gave you, which was ABVD, adriamycin, kills your heart. And I went, "Hold on, wait, no, that's not this." And they did an echo, and only 30% of my heart was working at that point. In conjunction, so the adriamycin damaged my heart, and then the radiation damaged my heart as well. So they put me on meds, where the meds seemed to work. I started to go back to training again. Still dealing with the loss of my friend and going through chemotherapy again because it was topical for the one on my back. So my world is like spinning out of control. And then I just slowly but surely started to get better. And then I said, maybe we'll stop doing marathons. Maybe we'll try a triathlon.
Maybe that'll be easier. A triathlon as opposed to a marathon. Let's try 3 instead of 1.
Crazy.
That's the way to go,
It's going to
Stacey.
be better that I can't get past this 13-mile thing. So let's try something a little bit smaller. Except my first big ride out, I'm on Bayshore Drive in front of Mercy Hospital on my bicycle, and a huge truck runs the red light and runs me over.
Oh my God. Okay.
And what happened? Like,
I bounced.
oh
You
my
are
God.
okay.
Um,
Wait, were you married with your husband at this
No,
time? Not
no,
yet. You met him.
not
I couldn't
yet.
remember
I
what.
had not met Michael yet.
Okay.
So I managed to get out of the accident. I literally came to underneath the truck with the handlebars embedded into my abdomen.
Oh my
Managed to miss every vital organ. Managed to not break any bones that were physical bones. I had 21 damaged discs, 20 microfractures in every single part of my spine, but nothing that was compound damage.
Okay, so you weren't ready yet.
Nope.
Not yet.
So I had to learn how to walk again, had to learn how to do stuff again.
Plus,
And then
you have no supportive family.
no family. So the only person I have is my buddy that from children. Scott was wonderful, but he was it. And then one of my ex-boyfriends, like literally I called, because he was an attorney, I called him from the intersection. I'm like, dude, I need you here now. And 5 minutes later, like he literally was there. Like, so he was super helpful, because at that point I was Imagination. There was nothing else. There was nobody else. I knew I was not going to be teaching for a really long time. So I went into a rehab facility to learn how to walk and stuff again. And then my heart started to do a whole different thing. And but I was like, okay, well, I'm not dating anybody, so let me just start going on dating boards and see if I can meet somebody.
Okay, the marathon didn't work, the triathlon didn't work, but
Maybe
maybe
the dating
dating
apps.
things, maybe that'll work.
And that's where I met Michael.
Aw.
Okay. Yeah, because everyone listening, not my Michael, my son Michael.
Yeah.
My
but-
husband's name
but
is Michael.
Yes. Good name. We know he's a good guy because good name.
What app was it?
Plenty of fish.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
like, and I happened to find him. We vibed. I went out on a date. I felt really bad because I was massively on really, really high painkillers. So I
Good,
don't even.
good time to go on a date.
I agree. That sounds fun.
That
He's
sounds
like-
fun.
He's like, it was awesome. I knew this was gonna be great because you wore a sheer white dress and you were not wearing anything underneath.
Oh my, that is so funny.
That's funny.
Oh my God, Stacy, you are so funny.
But that was really like, that was the funny. I mean, it was, and the fact that this guy would go out on a date with somebody that has already said to you, yeah, I got hit by a truck and all this stuff is wrong with me. And, my first spine surgery, he was like, okay, I'll meet you afterwards. I'm like, why would you do this? And so my third spine surgery, we had a reaction to. My heart function dropped to 10%. And yet again, we are dealing with that. And Valentine's Day 2012, they had to put in a defibrillator to keep my body going until they could get a heart for me.
Okay. I didn't know this part at all.
You had a heart. I didn't know you had a heart transplant.
I didn't know you had a heart transplant.
Well, there is a story to that. So I have not had a heart transplant.
Okay.
So Michael proposed because I told him she's not going to survive. He proposed post-op. So on Valentine's Day, they put in the defibrillator and Mike proposed. And we got married on February 29th, 2012.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah. And he has been my rock ever since.
He brought up your heart function.
Well, he helped with the heart function, but it was one of the many ER visits that we kept going to. One of the fourth years at said, hey, has anybody talked to you about stem cells? And I'm like, well, I don't have cancer anymore, so like, why would stem cells be important? And he's like, we have new research here where we have a program that can regrow the damage to your heart with stem cells.
Wow.
Okay.
So you won't have to have a transplant. And I'm like,
Amazing.
let's do it.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So I became the first woman because the study was made based on a man-sized heart. It took 2 years of fighting with NIH. It's under my maiden name, Stacey Sharrow, but the Stacey Sharrow exception allowed for a female-sized heart to get cardiac stem cells to regrow the damage to my heart.
That
Wow.
is so incredible.
Your story will impact so many people in the future. I mean, the chemo that you did back then, I'm sure that and then this is just, it's so amazing that all these new things came together
And it's
saved your
constantly
life.
changing. Yeah.
It's
Eh,
crazy. Wow.
Sorry, I'm turning down the fan. I finally got cold.
You are just.
I mean, what a
You
story.
are a miracle, but you have such a purpose. I keep coming back to it. Like, there is a reason your life keeps getting saved, and you're just
Yeah,
here to do so much,
the
Stacey.
9 lives thing is literally, we talk about it all the time. Like,
I
and
hope you like kitty cats.
I do, but I have puppies. Like,
You can have, you can like both.
I have long-haired dachshunds, so they are cat-ish.
But wait, I know I do want to get to what's going on now with your health, because I know we talked about it and I think you wanted to share because you told me that you still wanted to do the podcast.
Yeah.
So let's.
So, 2 weeks ago tomorrow, went into the dermatologist. I have a really rare side effect from the chemotherapy that causes essentially little tumors all over your body. It's called prurigo. It's a really rare side effect from lymphoma. And they were welts that were all over my body. And we finally got to this really high-end specialist that went, oh, this is what it is. Put me on one of the major drugs, Dupixent, and it magically all of the spots went away except for one. So this is my follow-up appointment, and he's like, it hasn't gone away. We need to do a biopsy. And I said, okay, like, I got it. Like, it's not gone away. This is still here. We will move forward with that. By the way, I have a skin tag in my vaginal area. Can you take a look at it? And he goes, sure. And there, he's super, super specialized, so he always travels with at least 2 fellows and 2 medical students. So there's this little tiny room and all of these specialists. And he's like, I'm like, okay, so let me just drop my drawers. And he's like, do you need a gown? I'm like, wait, no, like, we lost that feeling way before now as far as modesty. It doesn't exist. So I'm like, okay. And it turns out I had 4 tumors on my vaginal area. So immediately he's like, it's HPV. I can look at it and tell you exactly what it is. We're going to go ahead and cryotherapy it right now, and then immediately start you on topical chemotherapy. He's like, we don't even have to do a biopsy. I can tell you exactly what it is. So I've been spinning a little bit. Like, I literally had spent 5 months in really in-depth therapy, because I've been in therapy since the beginning of the pandemic, just because I was having panic attacks, and it was brought on by the isolation, the things that everybody was going through, and I was not dealing with that well. And then my defibrillator went off 5 months ago, and I couldn't get over it. I was freaked out. I couldn't stop. I for the first time ever, and even my therapist said to me, he goes, you have never freaked out about anything medical. Medical stuff has always been like, I'm always amazed that you talk about this stuff like it's just, oh, okay, yeah, this is what's happening. No big deal. This was not no big deal. So I ended up going to a hypnotherapist to help with the PTSD.
I have a caregiver she's doing hypnotherapy right now. Literally started 2 weeks ago. So this is like our topic right now is hypnotherapy.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Well, the hypnotherapy helped.
Yeah.
It was Tuesday that I had my last hypnotherapy session, and I came out of it and I went, I need to be a fighter. That is my job. My job is to go out and share my story. My job is to go do these things so that people see and hear it. My job is to not sit back and be a shrinking violet. We had just scheduled this, so it was like, okay. And then 2 days later, this happened with the doctor, and I went, nope, we are not letting this be a setback.
I know. I
This,
asked you. I'm like, do you want to put this on hold? You're like, nope.
nope.
I want to do it. And I was like, okay,
I,
we won't, it's going to
I,
help people. It's going to get to people. It's going to touch people. And yeah.
yeah, I mean, I did the heart walk on Saturday, and even though my body was not, I have a wheelchair, so I use it periodically. But like, I wheeled around in my wheelchair, but I was like, girl, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna do this. Like, stepping into that light is important. Being the face of what could be is important.
Yeah.
Giving a
Hope.
voice,
Giving hope.
hope. And that was the whole thing with my last hypnotherapy session. Was she's like, and one of my friends is a pediatric critical care doctor. She goes, you go into a cocoon, you cocoon for a little while, and then you come out this beautiful butterfly. And she's like, you've been in a cocoon for 5 months. She's like, let's do this. And that was it. And so I had gotten a book deal in 2010 and then got hit by the truck. So we put the book deal because it was too much.
Yeah.
And it needs to happen. Like, there needs to be more sharing the good stories and the stuff.
Story is mesmerizing, but it is
Yeah.
hope. And like what you were just saying about the cocoon and the butterfly, we always say, like, maybe sometimes it's cry to make space for the joy. Like, cry, take that moment, and you have to feel all the you can't just be positive. I hate when people, I shouldn't say I hate that, I understand it, but it's hard when people say just be positive, because you do have to go, you have to feel the hard
Right.
stuff.
You can't always be positive.
You can't always be positive. And then, but if you go through that like you did, you went through your cocoon, and now you're like, okay, now I'm moving forward. And I think you have to have those moments. Doesn't mean it's 5 months, doesn't mean it's a day, who knows how long it is, whatever it is for you.
But I had never really experienced depression throughout all this medical stuff. I had my boohoos.
Right.
So, like, when I first heard the words cancer, I cried for 20 minutes, and that was it. The second time I heard cancer, I cried for 20 minutes and then went, that's it. The third time I heard cancer, I cried for, 20 minutes and then went, nope, we're doing this. This is fine. The heart failure hit me really hard. So I had a little bit more of a boohoo moment. Just because it sideswiped me. It just came out of nowhere. And then the defibrillator going off, when we finally realized my defibrillator had gone off before. Like, I was live at Miss USA on Fox News the first time my defibrillator went off. Literally on live TV.
Oh my God.
Interviewing the president of Miss Universe.
Oh my God. And your defibrillator went off.
And I was in Reno by myself. My husband wasn't with me. Like,
oh my God.
So I had emergency heart surgery in like Reno, and just was like, okay, whatever, like, we'll do this. This time was different. It was at home. I was in my happy place. I was in where I consider myself safe. And then it wasn't even that it went off. I realized that it was the way the doctors spoke about me. Most of my doctors are super empathetic. They understand that because the autism, I have an eidetic memory, so I remember what I hear. And they were talking about me instead of to me. And it was a bunch of if-thens. Well, it could be this. We don't know why. Like, we don't understand. And I'm like, yo, hold on a second. This conversation needs to be to me, or this conversation needs to be outside of this room while you hypothetically figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And that is what caused me to have a full 5 months of panic attacks, crying, not knowing what to feel. And then 2 weeks ago, for the first time ever, I wanted someone to boo-hoo with me.
Oh.
I wanted to cry. I wanted to have the emotions because therapy has allowed me to feel those emotions. And I called. I looked at my husband who was there with me and I went, okay, Mike, like, let's talk about it on the way home. And he went, what? We're doing what they're told us. Like, it's no big deal. And I went, okay, got it. Doing what they told me. I called Scott. Scott, this is what's going on. He went, yeah, so we'll do what they're telling you you're going to do. We're going to do it. And I went, yeah, okay. Called my doctor friend in California. I need to tell you what's going on. She's like, no, we're going to do what the doctors say we're going to do. That's it. And I went, yeah. So my entire posse, which is fantastic and super positive, just went, nope, this is what the plan is. And I was stuck in all of these emotions going,
Oh.
can I cry?
You can
I
call
have
me and
so-
cry. You can call me and cry to me. I'll hug you and you can cry in my arms.
I had never felt that. And I had never trusted another human to let me feel those kinds of emotions because I didn't have them as a kid. So, yeah. So it's, you know, even Mike now is just like, well, okay, what it is. Like,
It's
we
because they're
can't
used to you being. It's because they're
that
used to
way.
you being so strong and just dealing with it. And like, okay, let's go. But you're allowed to cry, and you can call me and cry. You can come over, and we'll give you a big hug, and you can cry.
I still need to get it out. Like I finally like
Yeah.
I put on a bunch of really like sappy music and like started listening to the sappy music so that the crying would just start.
Along those lines, I remember when my husband died, and I felt like I always had to be not emotional, but not always given to everything in front of my kids. And Jennifer was, dancing about 35 minutes from where we lived. So when I would go pick her up at night, I would put on emotional music in the car, and I would cry in the car. And yeah, Ed Sheeran, Supermarket Flowers. I could put on that song on repeat and just cry. And it was good for me because it was my cathartic moment, and then I'd be okay.
Yeah.
But sometimes you do need to just cry. And yeah.
And I guess I had never given myself permission to do that before.
Yeah.
The previous traumas that had happened before cancer were if you cried, it was a sign of weakness.
Of course.
You didn't let yourself show that weakness.
And you didn't want to hurt the people around you. That's part of it.
Right.
You
And
don't
that
wanna
was a
hurt
big
the
thing
people around
too.
you.
Is like that I was so worried about and Michael, you probably you've been on both sides of it. I've been on both sides of it too. It is really difficult to be a survivor, to be a patient going through it and not feeling like you constantly are putting and leaning on people all the time.
Right.
Is that
Yeah,
like
that's true.
like doesn't and then there's a part of your brain that kind of feels guilty because
Of
or at least
course.
I did. I may be speaking
Right.
for
No,
you.
of course. Yeah, of course. Like, you always feel like you're a burden on people, and you don't want to feel like a burden on people, and sometimes you just want to act like you're okay when you're not, because you don't want people to worry about you. And yeah, it's a whole thing. I totally understand where you're coming from.
And it gets tedious to some degree because you're really worried about these people that clearly love you and want to take care of you, and you don't want to have to be that person that is making life really hard for them too.
Yeah, of course not.
And then the flip side of the caregiver, and I know you've been through this as well, is that the flip side is that the caregiver constantly is wanting to be there, support them, do whatever they can do. What can I do for you? How can I do this? And you're wanting to, there's this kinetic energy that happens where you want to make it all better.
And you cannot.
And you cannot.
And you cannot.
And so it makes for a very difficult time for the caregivers too, because you see this person that you love going through this trauma and you don't know how to make it better, and you can't make it better. You can just be there and be like, go team. And you don't want them to see you being upset, and you don't want them to see you crying and feeling those feels.
Yeah, so true. So we've had a really serious
I
conversation.
know. We have to have a few
We
fun
want to ask
questions.
you some fun questions.
Before
Sorry,
this
I'm
ends.
sorry. This was so deep, and
No, it's perfect.
We love deep.
But we have to
I
ask
can go
fun.
deep all day. We can do a whole other episode all about the, like, there's a few things you said. I'm like, that could be a whole new episode. But we have to ask some fun questions. Okay, ready? We do a little flip and...
All right, so what's a superpower you wish you had?
I already have it.
What is it?
Autism. Autism is my superpower.
Okay. I've never had that answer before.
And that's
I
a
love
brilliant... Okay.
I
What-
see things that people do not see, and micro expressions, microtones, things that nobody else sees. And so a big part of my program now is working with kids on the spectrum. And so we vibe. We know each other. We can see it. We know each other, and we get each other. And that is my superpower.
I love that.
It's
Okay.
not what I want. It's not what I would wish for. It is what I have.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. All right, what if you had a magic wand and you could do one thing, but just one thing with this magic wand? What would it be?
I don't know. Like, the first thing that comes to mind is go to every single Disney park in the world.
Oh, that's a good
Stick
one.
with it, because that is fun and no one ever said it.
That's a really fun one.
I have done 2 in 1 week.
Wow.
I've done Disney World and Disneyland in the same week.
Okay.
That,
But if I could do every single one of them, I would do every single one. It is my happy place.
I can see that about you, because you are magical, miraculous. You have like fairy dust that like flows out. It's like surrounding your aura. There's like fairy dust, so I'm going with
My
that.
friends call me Tinkerbell.
Yes, I can. Yes, I get that.
And we're gonna ask our final question here, which is, if you knew tomorrow would be like, if you knew you were gonna die tomorrow, what would you do today?
That is a great question that I would love to be able to say is really funny, because my first time on Good Morning America, they were running a roll and asked me that question, and I stopped
really?
No
in
way.
the middle of the interview and said, "Why do people keep asking me this question?"
Wow. Okay.
And
Well,
I
then-
went, and they said, "Well, did you think like Final Arrangements? Did you think Trip Around the World?" And I went, "No, I need to get through today.
Right.
I need to get through today to get to tomorrow." And
Okay.
that is, to me, today. We don't, I mean, I spent a lot of time in yesterday because there's a lot there, but we have right now. And that is the most important thing to do. And we forget that. We get caught up in the, it's the holidays and I got to do this and I got to do that and the things. And we forget tomorrow isn't promised. And 3 times they told me I did not have tomorrow. So do it.
That's a really great honest. I like that you were honest. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes. Amazing. Thank you, Stacey. You are beautiful and magical and Tinkerbell and
This is
everything.
This is a good vibe from your official host. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you being on the podcast. It was amazing. Your story is just unbelievable, literally.
Unbelievable, inspirational, full of hope. Thank you, Stacey. This is a goodbye from Ashley. Thank you so much, Stacey.
You guys are amazing humans. We appreciate you. Thanks for doing this. This changes the world and we need that.
Oh, you are amazing. You changed the world. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
We love
Mwah.
you guys.